Hey guys, we're gonna get started in about 2 minutes and 45 seconds. Hey guys, sorry, I just realized the audio was down. You probably could hear me now. Let me restart that a little bit. So, we're going to talk about drawing templates today. Um, Sorry, guys, that was my bad. Let me restart. Just let's go back and just restart that. Totally my fault. Don't you probably didn't hear anything I was saying. So we're gonna talk about drawing templates today. So drawing templates, I know you're gonna run away, but don't, because there's some cool things I'm gonna show you with smart templates and title blocks. We're gonna show you how to do that within Fusion 360. So what we're going to do today is show how we could do multiple sheets within a drawing pretty much automatically and lay everything out. One customer, Dave, he couldn't attend today, but he's going to watch the review a little bit later, is going to ask me about this question. I actually couldn't find any information online, so I'm going to go through today how we could do drawing templates within Fusion 360. So let's jump into Fusion again this time, and I'm going to go explain kind of how we're going to do drawing templates over and over. So let's go through here. You'll notice that I have a design. It's got quite a few different components. We have components that were designed in context of this assembly with a top-down design approach. We have some components. We have a sub-assembly. We also have some linked components, you'll notice, that I've inserted through fasteners. In addition, I have a sheet metal body that also is a different type of component we're going to look through it here in a second. The last thing you'll notice is I can go in and go to the animation workspace, and I've already set up two storyboards, and these two storyboards are just exploded views. But those are just some things before I go to use this smart template, what it's going to show you to do. So let's start by going to make a drawing. So I'll just go to design and go to the drawing drop down. There's like two ways to do this. You can also use the little piece of paper and say new drawing. But let's go to drawing, and then we'll say we want a new drawing from design. And I'm going to show you how it works first before we jump in and show you how to make one. So I'm going to go and drag, and I have a couple templates that I use, and I'm going to grab my smart template. And you'll see it. I've already specified the standard, the units, the sheet size. The one option here that you'll see is we have linked components. So all these linked components, I can have it make sheets, and I'll explain what that's going to do here in a second. But in this case, I'm going to say I don't want linked components to make a sheet for. So once I hit OK, you'll notice what it's going to start to do. It's going to create multiple sheets for everything in my Fusion 360 design. So we'll create a sheet for the body, the sub-assembly, the other components, all the way down to the sheet metal body, and as well as the exploded view here in a second. It does take a few seconds, and you'll see things start to pop up here in a second. But this is going to save you so much time from having to lay out your front top right view, your isometric, a standard exploded view. So once we get through that, you'll just see starting down here, they'll start pumping through all of my different components within my design. It does always take like 2 seconds to 30 seconds sometimes, you can see, to start going. And here it's starting to go. But it's going to just start to go through the drawing here in a second. I'm not sure what's taking it a second. My Fusion's just being a little bit slow, it looks like. Let's see if I accidentally did something wrong. Oh, there it goes. Just got to be patient. Patience is virtue. So once it starts to get going, though, you'll see what it's doing is it's just creating a couple sheets down here. And it's just going to pop through as it's automating this process. And you'll see what it's going to do is you'll see this start to change colors a little bit. Certain things are going to be suppressed. You saw an exploded view with a bomb. And we're going to explain how we set this up here momentarily. But I quickly wanted to just show you how it works first. And then we'll show you on one that we're going to create here afterwards how it works again. So you'll see that it goes through, it's just pumping through my tree, and you'll see one by one it steps down, steps down. It already made a couple of my exploded views from those animation workspaces as well. You'll see it skips those linked components, and that's because I unchecked that box when I started to make it. And voila, it's done. You see I actually just quickly made about, I don't know, 13 to 15 drawings. You can always come and rename the sheets afterwards, or print output a PDF for one sheet as well. But what it did is it went through and made, so this is my top level assembly. It first started with the top level assembly. Just this is my cover image maybe. It went through and made sheets for my exploded views. It created some bill of materials over here as well. There's another exploded view. And then it's, as you could see, once after the exploded views, as I go through these sheets, it's just going to work down my browser, component by component. So if you look through there, it went to the subassembly, went to a subassembly, showed the BOM for that subassembly. Now it's going to go to the components, and so every component, it will lay out a front, top, and right in an isometric with the color on, and that's because that's how I set it up. So you see it goes component, component. We'll skip ahead a couple, so this hits another subassembly, a few more components. And this is just saving you time from having to really do just non-value added work of laying out your front, top, and right view, your BOM. You'll see here in a second, I actually get to my sheet metal component, and I chose to do both a folded view as well as it laid out my flat pattern for with my bend table as well. So you'll notice that it also what we can do is also work with the title block. We can have unique title blocks for every set of one of these pages. And so that's just what we call our smart template. It just helps you lay out a bunch of views in a bunch of different sheets. To be honest, all of this probably is non-value add work, and it would have taken me quite a few seconds, where now I have it already laid out, and now I could start coming in here and dimensioning it. In the future, we'll probably have some stuff to help you auto dimension, but at the current time, we're just this is the current implementation lays out a bunch of different sheets and lays out all the different views for you. So now that you saw the magic, let's show you how to exactly do that. So let's jump back over to my Nitro engine. So first, what I'm going to cover is how to make different title blocks as well. So I'm going to come up here to my file menu. You only could find this under the file menu. It's a little bit hidden. And then go to new drawing. And then we're going to select, we want to create a new drawing template. So let's select new drawing template. You could start from an existing template. I'm going to do that here in a second to skip some work, but I want to show you how to make some title blocks and how to do this from scratch. So let's say I want to start from scratch. You could specify your different standards, whether you're using ASME in America or ISO if you're outside of America. Your different units, if you're using inches or millimeters, let's start with millimeters, and your different sheet sizes. Don't worry, we could always change the sheet sizes afterwards if you needed to. And let's go ahead and hit OK. All right, so what we're going to be doing now is basically starting with our title block. And the title block is always the best way to start, and then we'll start to move on to making smart templates. So our title block, let's jump right back in and show you how to do that. So we're just in a blank document. If I needed to change the sheet size or sheet scale, we could come to the sheet size and change it to a B, an A, flip it from landscape to portrait. Let's leave it at the C. You'll notice that down here, when I go to my title block, if I double click on it, I get a couple different things. Everything kind of looks blue and crazy. So this is how you could come through and edit. Maybe I want to name this project the Nitro. Sorry, didn't get into it. Nitro engine. So you'll notice that the blue words here are all editable. So I can double check, change anything. I could go through here, change that to my Aaron's name. We could do a. If I could spell his name right, and you could see these are the edited ones. This is important to know because I'll show you in a second as we're creating title blocks. So these are called attributes, and then these dark black words I can't do anything of. As much as I double click, you can probably hear my clicking feverishly. I can't change those because I'm editing. I can't edit the title block. So let's go ahead and start to change the title block. If I go through here and say I want to edit the title block, you'll notice I'll get a warning. It's just going to say, whoa, I actually can't edit the default title block, which is good. We're always going to have a title block there that you can use. But in this case, I could say I want to add a new title block. And we'll give it a name. We'll call this our YouTube title block. So what we can do is we could start from an existing, and that's what I'm going to do right now. We could start from scratch. If I just want to design everything from scratch, go ahead and start from scratch. We can also import a DWG file. So if you have other things from AutoCAD, Inventor, SolidWorks, save those drawings out as a DWG and then bring it in. It'll save you some time, and all you'll have to do is import or assign the associativity to the attributes, so making it a little bit smarter. So I'm going to say I want to start from an existing. Hit OK. and you'll see it throws me in this little title block editor mode. You have a couple options over here, so we can select the type of line type, the line weight, the border snap grid. So if I don't want the grid on, I could turn that on and off. I could also snap to the grid. If you're one of those AutoCAD users, go ahead and use that. You'll love it. And then also the border, you could see I could turn that on and off, depending on what type of drawing I'm making. So once I go through here, you're going to find a couple tools. We'll add, let's say, a couple sections over here. You'll find some tools up here, some pretty simple tools. Nothing advanced if you've used any 2D package. So I have my lines, my boxes. So let's say if I wanted to grab a box, I'm not going to do anything too crazy for you guys here. So let's say I want to put that there. We could use our line tool, drag around, nothing too exciting. And voila, we have some other tools in here like circles and arcs if you want to get really fancy. We also have some tools to move, rotate. If you want move things on the side. I've seen a few crazy title blocks from customers where they have the title blocks on like the right side and the words are vertical rather than horizontal. So you could do things like rotate the text. You could do trim and extend lines if I needed to come here, trim that guy down. So you could do that if you needed to. So nothing too exciting there, but this is where one thing with title blocks that's a little bit tricky. So next is we could go to our text and our attributes. So everything with text is basically not editable. So I could throw it in there, and let's drag it out here. I could say do the spinning wheel of death, not scale drawing. And then if I needed to, I could always click it and kind of move that where I needed to. And let's place it right there. So this is the text, as you can see, is this dark black stuff that I cannot edit. If I want to come through here and say, I want to say, let's put one more here, and we'll drag it out. I'm going to say this one's our material. I could spell material correctly. There we go. So this you could see not editable. When I was editing and adding the title in the title block, that's what we would call attributes. So let's set up an attribute. And what I like to do is basically say something very similar. But when we go through the attributes, we have a few select attributes that actually could pull from the document today. We're going to be expanding on this list. I know this is our first go at the title block editor, but we could do the drawn by, drawn date, and this will automatically pull from whoever drew it. So since I have my name, it would just pull my name. We could get the project name, and that would put the project name in the data panel, and things like that. But in this case, we'd probably want to select a custom, and I usually say material, something similar to what it is over here, so that someone knows what it is when they go to edit it. So as you can see, when if I double click back in, we can always make changes to the height of the text. You can also play with the justification, and that's just with text. The other thing we can do within here is we can change the lines as well. So if I wanted this top line to be a lot thicker for some reason, we could come and make it a huge bold one, or I can say I want it to be hidden. So let's make that a little bit smaller so you can see it. You could change the line type as well to center, but I'm going to leave that continuous. There's not too much else you could do with the title block editor. It just takes some time. I always recommend just taking that time to set up the title block up front. You only have to do it once, and then moving on, you could just use these title blocks forever. So I'm going to jump out and finish this title block here in a second. So let me go back to Fusion. Let's finish this title block. And one thing to know is what you can do is you could create multiple title blocks. So if I go through here, you'll see that this creates that new one I just created. If I go down to the sheet settings, I could pick which title block I want to use. So I could say I want to use my old one. I want to use my new one. So you could have as many title blocks as you want and switch on demand. If you just come in here and add more title blocks, I would have 3 to 5 title blocks if I need to use them for different scenarios. So I'm going to open up a title block. Let's find it in my templates folder. And I have a ASME or Acme, and it's in the millimeters. It's for a C template. This is the one I use quite often. Let's see if it opens here in a second. Close that. So this one's a little bit different, as you could see. If I double click on it, you'll see I actually took some time to add the material finish. And for some reason, my mouse is gone on Fusion. Don't you love when that happens? There it is. Give me 1 second. There we go. Got it back. I'm not sure what is going on. Fusion always disappears the mouse from time to time. I think it's just because it's over this drawing. Let me minimize, and that's usually what fixes it. And my mouse just keeps disappearing when I go in this drawing. Let's see if it's just that guy. Ah, there we go. Just had to switch documents real quickly. But this is another title block I created. And I spent a little bit more time. You see it's split over, so I could probably fix that as well if I needed to go edit the title block. But now we're going to get into the smart template aspect. So we can have different title blocks depending on the different sheets. You'll notice that I have one sheet down here. And I've already named this as my assembly sheet. So let's jump in here. And I'm just going to grab these views. So I'm still in this title block editor mode, as you could see. So actually, I'm not. I need to go to first, new drawing template. And then this time, I'm going to select the one I'm currently using, or currently looking at. And what it's going to do is just bring over that title block into this new template. And when I'm in this new template, what we're going to get is some new things. And these are going to be called placeholder views. So the placeholder view is essentially going to look like a big box. And then this box is essentially what's going to populate. There's some little tricks here and there. So when you look at this, you'll notice that it's coming in the front view. So let's just change that to an ISO. I just want this first one to be a cover image. So we'll say I want to go to the home view, something like that. We'll place it right there. And the first thing that is quite different is this assembly, or this representation option. So we have different types of representation. So in this case, I have my assembly and storyboard. And I'm going to go through one by one. And there's a couple more that you'll see here in a second. But I'm going to go through my assembly option. And what it's going to do is, in this current state, is it's going to bring in something in ISO. It's going to do it first with visible edges. Since it's going to be my cover, I want it shaded. The scale, I'll show you how to play around with that in the, here in the future, but scale I usually leave automatic, and then I come back and edit my template. I'll say I want full length edges, hit OK, and place it. So you'll see what happens here. For every time it sees an assembly, and when it goes through that Nitro engine, it's just going to place a isometric that's shaded with edges, nothing too fancy. So let's add another page, or another sheet. So this is where it gets a little bit tricky. So I'm going to come, and before I place it, you'll notice that now I get a couple more options. So I had that one for the assembly, just it has everything. In this case, what I wanted to do is I wanted to have an assembly and maybe a bill of materials. So I'll say I want an assembly. This time I'm going to place it over here. Again, I'm going to grab my home view. And I'm going to say, I want it shaded again, very similar to last one. And I'm going to change the last one, show you a little trick here. And I'll hit OK. But before I leave this one, you'll see that I have this assembly node in the left side. In this case, what I want to do is I want to grab a table. And what it's going to do, once I place it, I'm going to drag it and place it over here. If I had multiple views or different nodes, I could pick the reference of that node over on the side. But in this case, I only have one node, so let's place it right there. And you'll notice that what it does is it auto-ballooned it, and as well as it placed a dummy table, essentially. If you needed to, you could come in here and change a table. Maybe if you didn't want the description, you could turn that off, turn that on. You can also reorder, so maybe I want the material first, so I'll drag that up, or quantity, I want it at the end, so we can move the quantity all the way over there. And you can also change the table direction. And this is going to go through, and for every top level assembly and sub-assembly it sees in the Fusion design, it's going to create a isometric, going to balloon it, It's going to throw a bill of materials for us. So that's what it's going to go through one by one. Let's jump back to that first sheet. I forgot something for a second. You'll notice that this maintained that C size because that's what the template I use. I could actually come through and say, let's change that to a B. Maybe that's probably not fun. So let's change that to maybe a landscape. And I'll come and place that over here. And the text over here is gone, so I'll delete that. So we could so the first cover image is just going to be maybe our cover drawing, so we can place it like that. And then it's going to make another drawing for our assembly with the balloon and bill of materials. So let's keep going, make a couple more sheets. So I'm going to say I want to create another placeholder. You'll notice that I have the one over here. So this time we'll come and create one for a component. So this time for a component, we're on our front view. This time we'll create our standard front top right with an isometric. So we'll say I want a front view. I'm going to go with visible edges. I don't want to see the hidden edges, as well as I want full length tangent edges. Hit OK. And you'll notice it puts a component in that node this time. So I'm going to just say I want to create a projected view. And say I want to grab my top and right and ISO. And what's going to happen, because I use that projected, it's going to carry over all the properties from that one node, or from this guy. In this case, you can make one-off changes. I want this one to be shaded, so you can just right-click, edit view, and change that to shaded. There we go. Move on from there. So the last thing we could do is, as I was talking about earlier, we had different title blocks. If I had more title blocks here, I could switch between them all as I was going through. The other thing you can do is you can add notes or text if you need to, and for every drawing that sees a component, it would add that text block if you had a bunch of notes, standard notes that you needed for every drawing. But we'll keep going, show you the other types of drawings that we have. So we'll create one more sheet. And as you can see, it's starting to rename this. This is my assembly 1, my assembly 3, my component. If you ever wanted to rename the sheets, you can say rename. Let's hit quick add, and we'll do the next representation type. So we'll go through here. And before I get to sheet metal, because those are a little bit unique, I'm going to go to the storyboard. And what storyboard does is it does our exploded view. So for every assembly or for every animation, we have 2 storyboards in that Nitro engine. It's going to go through both storyboards and create an exploded view for us. So similar to the last one, I'll throw a bill of materials on this as well. You can have this bill of materials be different from the one I used over here. So I'm going to reorder those. So I have this one, as you can see, the quantities at the end. We can change this one if we needed to. Say I wanted the quantity over here. And I don't want material for that one. And I'll hit close. So far we've shown you the assembly, a couple different assemblies, the storyboard option for exploded view, and the component. The next one we're going to show you is for sheet metal. And sheet metal is slightly unique. So typically what I try to do is have one for folded, maybe one for flat. Sometimes I even had a couple customers where, let's place this guy. I'm going to do something similar where we put our front view. And we'll say OK. We'll change that to that and hit OK. And again, I will do this here, here, and here. And right click and hit OK. And just like last time, I always like to have my ISO shaded. So let's go and shade that, edit that one view as a one-off, because these are going to carry the properties from the parent. So you'll see that there's one other option. While I'm in here, once I hit OK, and I've already made this a sheet metal document, a sheet metal detail, you'll notice I can't select the assembly or component icon anymore, because this is a sheet metal drawing. You'll see this is going to make my front top and right and ISO for my sheet metal component, but some people want the folded and the flat next to each other. So in that case, I could create another sheet. In this case, I'm going to say I want my home. We'll make it shaded of my sheet metal folded, and it's flipped over on me again, so let's do that one more time. So we'll put my folded right here, hit OK. And then maybe some people would want this where they have the flat right next to the folded so they could see when they're manufacturing what it's supposed to look like, and hit OK. So you could see them side by side. But typically this isn't what I do for when I make drawings. What I tend to do is come through here, and we're going to instead just grab my flat pattern, place it right about here, hit OK. And this time when we go to our table, you'll notice when I'm in a sheet metal detail, we've made it super intelligent, so you don't have to be aware about which table, when you're in which drawing. You just grab the table and it'll automatically turn this into a bend table. So it's going to grab the bend table. You'll also see that it places the bend notes here if we needed to do that. And that's about it. So that's about it for creating the sheet metal templates. And like I said, you just have to run through this once, get it over with, run through creating customizing your title blocks to your company standards, and then creating this smart template. And I'm going to show you kind of how to use these smart templates now. So let's go to jump back to Fusion, and I'm going to save this, and we'll call this my YouTube template. Hit save. It's going to save it. I'm going to jump in, and you'll notice it put it right into my templates folder. I have a few different templates. I also have a couple more that I've hidden. But let's jump back to that Nitro engine. And I'm not done really setting up that template yet. There's still a couple things you may need to change here and there, so leave that open, because the scale sometimes gets a little wonky depending on what sheet size. So I'll show you how to edit those as we go through here. So I'm going to go say I want to create a new drawing from my design. Instead of using that one I created before, I'm going to use my YouTube template I just created in front of you. I'm going to exclude linked documents, and you'll notice it grabbed the rest of my information. This is going to take a couple seconds, like I always say. It's going to jump through and create one for all of them. Sometimes it starts super quick, other times it goes a little slower, and it really depends on your file size of your assembly sometimes. And in this case, it's quite complex because it has assemblies, storyboards, sheet metal components. And you see it's already starting to go through here and churn through. And it's going to start by doing the exploded views as well as now probably laying out the components. So it's going to do the front, top, right. Since it saw that subassembly, it's going to create one that's the cover page as well as the one with the bill of materials. And it's just going to take a few seconds, but again, this is going to be saving the boring part of you having to manually lay out all these different views one by one by one by one. Here, it just quickly goes through. And to be honest, I let it churn sometimes, and it does more drawings than I need. And I'll show you an example of one I probably don't want here in a second. But let's go through and see what we just created. So this was that cover one. I deleted that note. It's just a cover image that I created. Then it went through and saw the assembly. Sometimes it comes in a little bit small. If you look at my parts list, it looks pretty good. So maybe if I needed to increase it, I like to set it to automatic usually when you're creating the drawings. And I'll edit that view. So automatic brought it in at 1 to 2. Let's say I want it to go to 1 to 1. And it's going to redo it, keep the balloons all tied up. So you can go ahead and change it on the fly. And I think I go by the 80-20 rule. If you find yourself changing it a lot, what you would want to do if you find yourself always changing that to a 1 to 1, you would jump right back into that template, and you'll see it's at V1. And let's say for that exploded view, or for the one view with the dots, it's always coming in at a certain view. I just right-click, edit, change that to a 1 to 1. See it get a little bit bigger. This is a little buggy right now, and they're going to hopefully be fixing this, but you see how the balloons get a little crazy here? What I tend to do is just delete the table and delete the balloons, and then bring that table back in, and you'll see it lines them all up. So that's a little trick I do, and just in case that happens when you scale up or down. But now, once I save it, we'll say updated scale. Hit OK. You'll see that version go to version 2, and now we can go through back into our drawing, and you can, as it's saving to the cloud. You could see all the different versions in here. So as you're making changes to your templates, maybe you screw up something, you can always promote an old template as well. So let's jump back in and keep looking at what we were doing. So let's go through, we have our animation with the exploded view we created in the animation. You'll notice that this has a difference parts list because I hid the material just for the exploded views for some reason. Maybe that's your company standard. As well, go through, you see that it lays out the front, top, right. This is that cover photo, very similar to that one. I probably don't need it for this sub-assembly, so you could just right-click and say delete sheet if you don't want that anymore. But this one I would want because it has all my information for my material description. And then you could go through and see your parts, and you'll see that it created quite a few sheets for the parts, as well as the sub-assemblies. And you get little previews as you hover over. And at any time, if it kind of, because as it goes down, it builds it one by one by one by one. Maybe you wanted all your sub-assemblies up front. So, for example, this is a sub-assembly. I could just grab these two drawings. Yep, I can't do them at the same time, but drag it all the way to the front if I needed to reorder my drawings. And if we all jump all the way to the back where my sheet metal ones, so it made a front, top, and right for my sheet metal components. And then it goes into my having my folded and flat right next to each other, just in case I needed that for my company standard, as well as my flat with all the bend tables. Not sure why that balloon came in there, but let's just get rid of that. And as well as it matches up to the bends. This maybe is a little bit too small, like I said, or maybe you want to make it shaded. You can always just come in here and say I want like a 2:1, quite a bit bigger. Matches our scale for here. And if you didn't notice, if you drag this off, it'll automatically have that leader pointing to the right place on the bend, just in case you have some quite a few bends all in this location. The numbers sometimes stack on each other. So you just click and drag it off and place it where you want. So that's about it for drawings and templates. So I started off creating those title blocks, went all the way through, showed you how to make those smart templates with those placeholders. Add as much detail as you need in those templates. If you find yourself adding notes to every sheet, maybe every component sheet, all these different notes, add that in the template. So next time when you create that drawing template, you don't necessarily need to do that. But you guys have a great week. A couple things, housekeeping items. Make sure to check out next week's Fusion YouTube Lives. We're going to be going from design to manufacture. It's a 4-part series on YouTube Lives. It's going to be Brad Tallis doing the engineering work and design work. And Angelo Jura is going to be doing the manufacturing. It's going to be an exciting one. I know I'm going to tune in. As well as we have Fusion Academy in August 5th, 6th, and 7th. It's a great place to learn more things about Fusion. It's a 2-day conference in Portland, Oregon. Make sure you're going to be there. I'm going to be there teaching some classes, working with some customers, answering some questions. We have 3 tracks for industrial designers, mechanical engineers, and manufacturers for machinists. We're going to have a couple machines there. Make sure to get there. It's going to be a great time. But that's it for this week. Have a great time, guys.